And we're back. And we're back. Shiva School Show, wartime morning seder. Shiur number 5 of Lulav hagazul. And I wrote on Facebook the introduction to shiur today is the name of shiur today is taxes. Is it all theft? Is all taxes theft or only some of them? Yesterday, we were all surprised. Even me, myself, I learned this parak in Ian, in Shana, in Elzman of Shana Gimel. But that was years ago. I was 20. I was 20. That was 14 years ago.
Your bar mitzvah years away.
Yeah. And so I learned it back then, but now we're looking at it as adults, and we're like, wait a second. Well, compared to what it was, compared to when I was 20, I have a more mature perspective. And this year, like something that it didn't even personally Torah-wise, everything. Also, a more mature Mets fan. Like even though great that the Mets won, but I don't care. I don't get emotionally involved at all. This thing which I completely passed over when I was 20 years old learning this is this idea of taxes that Hashem hating gazel and theft is compared in the Gemara to a king who tells his tax collectors, he tells his servants, when they're passing the tax, Ravid. Yo, title of today's shiur, are all taxes theft or only some of them? So, because yesterday we saw the comparison. We saw the comparison, HaKadosh Baruch Hu hating gazel. What does Hashem care? Everything's Hashem. So who cares if one person steals? No, Hashem hates gazel. Today's shiur is sponsored by Jews in Jerusalem. Holy Jews is over here and over there. It's a reality, right? We've been doing. It's been sponsoring shiur for years, and now we're zocheh to actually have it. We've been davening for this day. Shkaya.
I'm not staying. I'm
over
gonna
here.
watch
Over here. Over here. Okay, so the taxes. So it's a sugya that when I was 20, when I first learned this, I didn't think anything of it. But now when I saw it, I'm like, we mentioned it. Actually, all we did was mention it in shiur at the end of shiur yesterday. And so let's see what the Gemara says about this tax collector. So, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Rabbi Yochanan says the name of Rashbi.
Okay, fine.
Lamed Amar Aleph. Oh, 8. My dichsev now 9. Ki ani Hashem oev mishpat, so negeza be'olah. Right? I am Hashem. I love justice and I hate stealing. It's a mashal. The Melech Basav Adam, a king of flesh and blood. Shahaya over al beis hameches. He was passing by the house of taxes. When you're passing in a street and you have to pay taxes. It's a good thing. I mean, not a good thing. It's maybe a theft thing, but it's a thing that we understand. We have what to compare it to, and even in our own lives, when you're passing on the bridge on the way to the beach in Long Island, you have to pay that tax. Toll booth.
Yeah, and it's cash or membership only, and you don't.
Or Easy Pass.
No, they just introduced Easy Pass a year or two ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, before that, it was if you don't have cash, you can't.
You can't ask.
No credit card, no.
Big Sheba. So the king was passing this toll booth. Amar la'avadav. He says to his servant, he's not going to go into his own pocket after all, but he's going to say, give the tax to the tax collectors, pay the toll. You gotta pay the toll, troll, to get into that boy's soul. Oh, his son, Philadelphia. Yeah, he totally did his snare. Very crumb. Okay. Give the toll troll. V'halo kol meches kulo shelchahu. But wait a second, all the taxes are going to you anyways. Amar lahem, mimeni yilmedu kol overei derachim. All of the people who pass are going to learn from me. V'lo yavrichu atzman min hameches. So they won't stop paying taxes. So even though it's not really applicable and doesn't make sense to be able to apply taxes to a king, the king is going to do that so that people will learn what to do to pay taxes. But the Gemara says we'll learn what not to do, not to avoid taxes.
Manipulation here. He's like, I need to manipulate my people.
Yeah.
With false reality.
Right.
I'm not even really giving taxes.
It doesn't even make it's nothing. But they're gonna think.
Convince other people to pay to play.
Bro, huge shibud, and this is what's compared to. Like we have to understand this is a fascinating nikuda, right? So too. I mean, yeah. It seems like when the king does it, it's a saya. When the Melech Basar V'dam does it, it's like we think that like, oh, he's even paying, but really it's going right back into his pocket. But he's doing it like as a psychological operation.
That's like when the leaders like took the pay, like they pretended they were taking a shot.
It's exactly when they pretended they're getting the vaccine. Genius, right? They say, oh yeah, they got it, they got saline, if anything. So sometimes they would do it, and like Kamala Harris would get a vaccine, and there would be no needle.
Yeah, the needle
they wouldn't even open it up. It was like, yeah.
It's like those, those knives as a kid, you can like stab someone and like it pushes it in.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes they wouldn't even give us the honor of even doing that level of deception, and they would leave the top on, and they would just like pretend it's theater. They're not. Liars. Yeah, they're not good actors. They're liars. They're Avdei Avodah Zarah and Satanists. But that's what the king does. So lahavdil, even though the Gemara doesn't say lahavdil, so too HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "I ani soneh gezel be'olah." They'll learn the avrichu atzman min hagezel. It's the opposite of the king. The king says they're gonna give. No, it's a great mashal. It's a great mashal because of the contrast. The king, because the king, he says, I'm gonna do the psychological operation so that they won't yavrichu atzman, they won't run themselves away from, they won't hide from paying taxes, aka that they will be getting theft, they will be getting robbed. They won't hide from not getting robbed, they will be getting robbed. Hashem is the opposite. Hashem says, even though for me, like at the end of the day, everything is Eivishter anyway, so what's gezel, right? But since Hashem wants to teach us good midos, that Hashem wants us to hide away, to run away from stealing. The king wants us to run away from not stealing. He wants to manipulate us into letting ourselves get robbed. It's just part of the saya of the king. Hashem does a similar construct, but when Hashem does it, when Melech Malchei Hamlachim does it, it's in order to teach us. He does it because he loves us, and he wants to teach us the emesdik way to live. Masha'ain came, when the king does it, it's for psychological operation. It's to convince us that like, oh yeah, we should just go and pay the taxes, and like, yeah, it's a normal way of life. Everyone does it. Oh, everyone gets the vaccine. Look at all this thing. Everyone's voting. Look, both sides are like saying like, yeah, just go out and vote. Everyone's buying into the sayat of voting. It's an unbelievable shibud sugya nikuda here with this meches, with these taxes. And that's the comparison. So, when we talked about this yesterday, do you guys like the comparison? You guys hear it now? You see how like, it's a nice thing. Maybe we'll even see the Maharsha, right? We see a good Maharsha. The Maharsha likes to talk about also the agadic side of the Gemara. We know that the Gemara is split into two parts. What are they? You know?
The Gemara is split into two parts.
Two sections, two types of. No, okay, fine. So that's not a halacha I was looking for, and agada. It's that the Gemara is split, and you have parts of it that are halacha, trying to teach us how to act, like what to do in a certain thing. What? Yeah, shkaf halacha, yeah. And then the other one is agada. It's stories about.
We're supposed to learn from
these, about the rabbis and how they lived, and we learn out from them, from that also. And the Maharsha, he is unique. What are the lessons we're going to learn from it? Maybe we'll see the Maharsha. Before we see the Maharsha, though, I wanted to go a little bit into the taxes sugya, because b'siyat d'shmaya, somehow yesterday I was able to find a Gemara in the dime. Like we said, Olam Haba, Shtenda, Manadam Ran. Ran. My uncle says that.
I'm still interested in smelling the sand.
Smelling the sand. Listen, yeah, we want to live in this world, right? I agree. So let's learn the Dharma in this world. So the Gemara, it talks about taxes, and it talks about, well, are these taxes theft? Like, how is the king going to, right? Where it says hamoches she'en lo kitzava, right? Wait, it starts with the Mishnah. It's so that nodrim lahargid, so you can make nidarib someone the hargid achavim lemochsin, make a neder. So you can make a neder. Someone's trying to kill you. Someone's trying to like destroy you. Someone's trying to collect taxes from you. You can make a neder. Shehi truma. Avabi she'eno truma. You can say like, I'm gonna donate this, even though I'm not gonna. Shehein shel beis hamelech. Oh yeah, this belongs. Don't worry. I'm gonna give taxes on this stuff. I'm gonna give these taxes to the house of the king. Don't worry. I'm gonna give taxes on these things. Avabi she'enan shel beis hamelech. Even though it's not, you can make a shvua. You can to a tax collector. You can lie. Beis Shammai says b'kol nodrin chutz b'shvua. Just don't say shvua. Maybe we have to go to Sukkah. Beis Hillel says af b'shvua. You can even say the lashon shvua. I swear, right? But okay, so the Gemara goes through these taxes. It seems that you're allowed to lie to a tax collector, lie to a shibud. Definitely, we have to see this is a Mishnah on the Darim Daf Chav Zayin Amud Beis going into Chav Ches. Unbelievably fascinating Mishnah. Beis Shammai says lo yiftach lo b'neder. Beis Shammai says, okay, like if he forces you to swear, you can swear and lie to a tax collector, to a shibud tax collector. If he forces you to swear. But don't like swear like without him forcing you to swear. Like if you're in that position that he's making you swear.
How do you define force?
The Beis Hillel Omer and Beis Hillel says Av yiftach lo. You can even open. You can even open for him. Whatever it is, however everyone wants to think about it, of what it means to be forced. If he says like, "Yo, swear to me that you lost it," or swear to me that this is all that you have to pay taxes on. This is your entire net worth. For example, yes, you swear. That's what I mean. And Beis Hillel says you can even swear and open with the swear. Beis Shammai says, "B'mashu meidiro." Beis Hillel says, "Af mashe'enu meidiro." You could just like, Beis Shammai says, swear only on the thing that he says. Swear to me that this is all your money. Beis Shammai says you can swear about that. Beis Hillel says you can swear and lie about like anything. Like to this tax collector, you could be like, oh, I swear that this is all the money I have, and like I swear that like also like that. I don't think you're an idiot. I don't know. You can we can use our imagination to imagine any other swear or just to get this guy out. What's the case? Amar lo.
Says Hashem loves emes and all this stuff, and it's like
So we have to see.
Hashem loves emes. Now I'm not saying emes to the guy, and Hashem still was a mitzvah. Now
You're allowed to. It says you're allowed to lie to the tax collector. So we have to see like what's the hagdara first. What's the case? Amar lo, amor konem ishti nanisli. So he says, my wife is not allowed to get any hana from me. Someone make a swear like that. Amar konem ishti ubanai nanim. We were going to swear to his kids. We're not getting enough from him. No, we should not know from many of these swears. A lot of times these swears come when a person's in a really bad place, and he says like, "Oh, I don't want anything to do with this person." But he makes a shvuah. It's rough. That's why like we don't like make ourselves rugged for shvuahs. You always add a belina there. It's a good minhag. Belina.
then we even have a Thurston Darim on the land.
Yeah, I can't wait for a Thurston Darim. It's a very free, cleansing
So if
feeling.
Hashem wants emes, where does he endorse the king to
So let's
lie
see.
and do the psych to begin with?
Great question. Let's see.
I mean, why did Hashem let the basic mikdash? There's a lot of things you could ask. Why did Hashem let? Why did Hashem let? But we're a shit. So there's a partnership in the world. We're partially responsible.
Yeah, Yeah.
Basically, this was destroyed. The sin is sin. Not because Hashem wanted it to get destroyed.
Yeah. Ketzad. So what's the case of this tax lie or a lie if someone's trying to like kill you or destroy your property or whatever? Who says my wife or my kids not get hana, and Basil says elu ve'elu. So in such a case, the shiur does not chal. Right? So the case would be like this: tax collector would come and say, "Give me your money." And he's, "But I'm a poor man. I don't have so much money to give for taxes. Here's a few, right?" And then, right, but really, he's dressed in rags, but really downstairs he knows that like there's like gold and silver, and so he's like, "I swear that if I have any money that I'm not revealing to you, like my wife and my kids would not be able to have any benefit from me for the rest of like their lives." So like obviously if a person's gonna make such a swear, so he's obviously being serious. No. You can make that swear, and it says, Bezil says, Elu ve'elu mutarin. So it seems that we have carte blanche to lie to the Sheba, but we have to go deeper. We have to see the Gemara. Because the Gemara asks a bomb kasha, a huge sugya in the Sheba, related to taxes, related to a lot of what we are trying to do, which is really say thank you to the secular, modern Zionist government of Israel that they took us this far. They got us to Eretz Yisrael. They have a schus. They have a schus. But now, okay, Adkan. Now it's time for Malchus Beis David. It's time for Beis Hamikdash. It's time for going veiter in the Rosh Mashiach. And so, like, we don't know exactly how we're going to fight back. Right now, we're fighting back by spreading the truth and learning Torah. But to know how to fight back, we need to know these sugyas in the Gemara. Because, wait a second, you're telling me that the Mishnah is implying that, like, oh, no problem, just lie and swear, it doesn't matter to the shibud? V'ha'amar Shmuel, immediately the Gemara asks a question. Do you want to look at me? You want to go look in the Gemara? In Sfaria? V'ha'amar Shmuel, but doesn't Shmuel say, Dina de Malchus Dina? Doesn't Shmuel say that the law of the land that you're living in is din? That's the law. Answers the Gemara, Amar Rav Yechinina, Amar Rav Kahana, Amar Shmuel, B'moches she'ein lo kitzava. We're dealing with a tax collector that has he doesn't have any fixed amount that he's collecting. We're talking.
There is no dean even over here.
Right, we're talking. Yeah, exactly. We're talking about.
Up on the fly.
Yeah, we're talking about some guys just like, yo, I'm coming to pay taxes, or maybe the king has very corrupt tax collectors, and so the king says, "Get me 10%," and they're like, "I'm going to take 50%, keep 40% for myself." Tax collectors. This is a case where the tax collector has no bounds. In such a case, we're not like, oh, please abuse me and turn the other cheek. We're like, yo, you're coming to like deceive me and rip me off, So, bala shakro, like kodem v'shakro, like right, v'shakro. I said like he's trying to. So this is a case where he has no kitzvah, or says the Gemara, there's no amount. He'll just collect as much as he wants. The Be'er of Yanai, the house of Rav Yanai says it's b'moches ha'omed me'elav. Some guy knocks on the door. Taxes. This guy. Can I see your tax collecting like things? And he flashes a gun. So then I swear I have nothing. I swear on the life of my family. Exactly. By the way, all taxes is mafia. What's the difference between the government and the mafia? The government is allowed to kill. Yeah. They have an army and they have armed guards that are allowed to walk around and lead. Yeah, and if you don't pay, they're legally allowed to kill. And even if you do pay, and it's nothing to do with taxes, they still have like pretty much carte blanche. So we see from the Gemara that it's not so simple. It's not that you can just lie about taxes but it's in a case where they're acting not proper. But in the first place, what gives a king a right to collect money that's not his.
Under false pretenses.
Well, false pretenses.
Well, no,
What
no,
pretenses?
no,
He
no.
could say,
The
"I'm
right
collecting.
The king has to collect taxes.
I'm collecting taxes." Yeah.
Is because he's saying, I'm providing for you services.
Okay.
There's got to be services like, first of all, I have an army here to keep you from the Spaniards coming and raping everyone. That's the first thing. You're safe because I'm here. Secondly, maybe we have waste management system, or maybe
And we have drachim.
the king has to provide a fair exchange, and historically, when the king stops providing that, people rebel.
I hear. So you say that taxes. Okay. Well, is that a halachic construct? Does the Torah say to the king, like, yo, you can do that? You can like, or is this whole
Well, how's the king supposed to fund
king
an army?
shit?
I don't know.
The question is, we have to. It's just a question. So
Maybe an army is a false reality in the first place, but it's
no, we know. Am Yisrael has an army. Am Yisrael has
How
a
are we supposed to
melech.
fund our army? How are we supposed to fund it?
Am Yisrael has a melech. Well, we know that the Torah is true. Machzeh shekel.
I like that we didn't depend if you're rich or poor. It was
Right.
just-
Everyone gives machzeh. Everyone gives a little bit. It's really just like a buy-in kind of thing. The machzeh
It's
shekel.
enough to start an operation.
Yeah, the machzeh shekel. Everyone gets machzeh shekel. But Rivka, we were talking yesterday. Rivka was talking about that, like Kol Nediv Lev. That like when it came to the Beis Hamikdash, like people would donate. The state of Israel, maybe there should be like when we have the halachic state of Israel, that there should be a tax system, a small taxes.
Or even donations. How much
Donations, I think
How
that-
many hundreds of millions of dollars did we donate to bring soldiers baby wipes? And
Right, exactly. Donations for the halachic state of Eretz Yisrael, and no taxes, and the Yiddish will all come back to like, how are the Yiddish? It's so amazing in America. How are the Yiddish going to come to Israel? It's so much harder here. Oh, well, the halachic state of Israel is not going to charge insane taxes, half money like it is in the shibud, stealing, lying, Satanist, child raping state of America, right? And so when Israel becomes not like that, and becomes a halachic state of Eretz Hashem, we face the mikdash. So there's going to be almost no taxes. Almost no taxes for Eden. Almost no taxes for Eden, I think. The Goyim still have to pay like taxes like it is. Right. Still have to pay taxes, but they can live here. But they still have to pay taxes. By the way, this is following.
Because they see the Jewish people become like, on, keep going.
Right. Oh, good one. This is following in the paths of our great grandfather, Mar Zerchar, from the Kufa of the Savoraim, who fought against the Sassanids in Bavel, and had 7 years of Jewish rule
In Babylon?
in Babylon. Established 7 years of Jewish rule in Babylon. So, when we're talking about taxes, we're also thinking about when we start like halachic, when we start like a real
Commonwealth.
we have to figure out what we're going to call it, like Yisrael v'Yehuda, Malchus Beis David, when we rezocha to Malchus Beis David, B'Sheach Tzidkenu, B'Meher Yameinu, we have to know like how the taxes, how we're going to collect taxes, and what we're going to do, and so it's already halacha l'maisa. Remember you're talking like, oh, I don't want to halacha l'maisa. This is halacha l'maisa right now. In Aruch HaShulchan Asid, maybe he paskins it. Remember we got the last Aruch HaShulchan Asid in Yerushalayim, time of the pandemic? Mm-hmm. And then we learned Hilchos Binyan Beis HaMikdash.
Yeah, the store owner couldn't even believe you were looking for it.
Yeah, he's like, never heard. Like, remember some of the stories. And then we found it, Baruch Hashem. Okay, so, Dina de Malchus Dina, Rambam so where does the Rambam talk about taxes? So we're saying, yesterday we suggested, wait, are taxes theft? What's the deal with these taxes? Are they theft? Are they not theft? And we lied fair. And then today we saw this Gemara in the Darim, and it seems to me that you're allowed to lie to not pay taxes if it's a tax with no limit, which implies that if it's a tax with a limit, it's okay, and you wouldn't be allowed to lie about taxes. It would be like mutter for the king to collect taxes. We have to see like what's that from. But we get our first clue of is taxes theft or not, or how much, to what level. Obviously it's a gray area. Our first clue, where does the Rambam talk about taxes? Hilchos Gezela, laws of stealing.
And how about the donations for the Mishnah?
What about them?
The fact that once we hit the point where all the money that was collected bought all the things necessary,
Right.
they stopped people from giving, and then they took whatever was left and redistributed it, right?
Wow.
So it's not simply about taxes.
Good point.
It's about any monetary thing controlled by a bureaucracy, even if it's in the form of donations. How much actually gets applied,
great point.
and how much goes to the collectors. And I mean, in the States, we have people that call for the volunteer fire department, but they make over 50%, and only a small pittance goes to the actual
Right.
cause.
It's very bad. That's stealing. That's like not glad when a person would do that. Shalom Yaakov, Shalom Aleichem. It's a really interesting sugya. And Rivka, last night when we were talking about it, or yesterday, whatever, she mentioned like the comparison to just what you're mentioning now, the comparison to when we collected in the base, so for the base of Mikdash, Machazis Shekel. Harry mentioned everyone's on the ball in this comparison. We're thinking about taxes, and this is how we're going to figure out in the new Malchus based David. We're doing taxes. That's how we're going to figure out. We're going to go back into the Torah. When we figure out, this is what we did. We were sitting right over here in this house, right when October 7th happened. And we were talking about how do we figure out what to do with, like in Gaza, like how do we know what to do? So we just got to see what it says in the Torah. We got to see what the MS is. If it wasn't for the Torah, how lost we would be. Well, even about history, knowing about history, we've been lied to so much. Science, we've been lied to so much. If it wasn't for the Torah telling us what's what, we'd be lost in poverty. No pun intended, talking about like taxes.
Like I said, I don't even like the word taxes, because that's like already...
Yeah, it's taxing. It's taxing on us.
It's any sum of money, even if it's given willingly. Now what happens to it?
Yeah.
Who's in charge? Is there Herenstein from that point on?
We're going to have to find someone who's really like... They must on Torah. He's a good kid. Maybe, I don't know.
You're like, you're already rich.
Maybe my dad. Trump. Oh, Trump was saying...
Trump was already rich, so people didn't think he was like benefiting from like wealth from his political position.
Yeah, but I mean, Trump is a Satanist, and MAGA is we're blithing, but MAGA is
just because it means in Latin.
MAGA is and we know that he's friends with Epstein. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that were asked that were
Cyrus. I'm sure
that were blithing hard. So this is the tzad of the people. This is what David Cable also says, that if they're comparing it to Daryavesh or to Koresh or to Achashverosh, that Trump is a king, and like even though he has his problems, Achashverosh was mevaze the Beis Hamikdash, the Kalim. He was so happy that they had the destruction, that he had all the Kalim in the Beis Hamikdash. He was drinking out of them at his party. The mevaze, he would embarrass the Beis Hamikdash, embarrass Am Yisrael, but still, he ended up from him. Marrying Esther, and his kids became from, and so there is that side to look on Trump, and so we are vibing on the Trump sugya. But that
he went to the Yoel yesterday.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
Saying, we don't expect them to be not involved in shtickle veiter because they don't have Hashem.
They don't have.
But how do you treat us? How do you treat Christ? That's really what the judgment.
Yeah, Lev Malachim Biyad Hashem.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
They don't have no bechira.
What?
They don't have any bechira.
Yeah.
That's why, and then we answer the famous question: if they don't have bechira, how does Hashem harden Paro's heart? And
Oh, it's a big sugya.
And they say he had to harden his heart to give him a sense of bechira, because otherwise there was no. How could you not see the miracles going?
Right.
You had to
like to even the playing field. I heard that shtickle. Shkayach. Okay. Zuk the Rambam. What?
Rambam on the Dharma?
Yeah,
Okay.
the Rambam in Hilchos Gezela, so the Rambam doesn't even quote. The Rambam, he just wrote what the halach is. Can I have some cake, please?
As
he
thanks.
does
without giving the source.
Yeah, the Rambam was like, I'm just going to replace the Gemara. They call it Mishnah Torah. You don't have to read the Gemara anymore because the Rambam brought all of the Gemara. Now you just have to know what to do. Al pi halacha. You don't have to waste your time learning Gemara anymore. Rambam didn't say waste your time, but you don't have to do it. to learn the halacha. You could just do it easier. But we use the Rambam now to understand how to understand the Gemara. How did the Rambam learn? And so the Ein Mishpat Ner Mitzvah, they call him the M&M, Ein Mishpat Ner Mitzvah. He brings from like where the Rambam and where the Shulchan Aruch would like paskin from in their, and so here the Rambam paskin this halacha in the Gemara in Hilchos Gezela. Hilchos Gezela v'Aveda Perek Hey. Zak the Gemara. Thank you, Rebbe Sin. Thank you, Zalman. Did you make this?
Still warm.
That's unbelievable. Carrot cake. Oh my God, I'm like trembling. Baruch atah v'chalam, b'reim v'znos.
Amen.
Unbelievable.
It was still cold, and there's a cold orange was so strong.
Isn't it rigged? Oui.
You get the cold?
Of this?
It wasn't pretty.
Oh, okay.
Yo, that carrot cake makes me want to sing a song about carrots that I made up when I was in fourth grade, and I got kicked out of school. And I got kicked out of class in fourth grade, and I would like sit and read Garfield comics outside of class.
You were kicked out for what reason?
Use your imagination.
Just being you.
Yeah, exactly.
For not being a triangle to fit in a square.
And so.
How'd you fake it through third grade?
Well, I got kicked out of class. I got kicked out of my class like permanently in second grade, and then we switched to a different class. And then in fourth grade, I would get like kicked out of like the actual like they would say go outside. And I made up a song, and I would go back into class and I would just sing the song. And the second song that I remember is a carrot. I think I saw a carrot. Okay. Says the Rambam, Perek Hey, Halacha Yud Aleph. But Medvar Mamurim. Well, what are these things they're talking about that you're allowed to lie and you're allowed to make a neder and you're allowed to...
Give me some hagazul.
Right. And by the way, the specifics of, well, what exactly, what lies in this and what had the Rambam Paskin, we're skipping for now because I want to go to what the Rambam of... In what cases are you allowed to do those lies and those... It's called nidre onsim, like you're being forced to make an neder, like if not, he's going to kill you or take your stuff or, or rob you. When are you allowed to do it? Kisha b'medvar mamurim, when is it said? Kisha hamoches kilistim. When the robber is, what does it mean when the robber is like when the tax collector is like a robber? Bisman shamoches goy. First of all,
we gotta hide this one from the goyim.
Bro, not hiding anything from the goyim.
I'm saying they look into these things and they tell us the ones who are like racist and. Yeah. Oh, so I'm a Gentile, so I am already assumed to be a thief and this and that.
Yes. Wait, hon, you're not assumed to be a thief, but if you're trying to collect taxes, you are. Oh,
if you're a Gentile taking my money.
Yeah, exactly. If you're trying to rob me, so then...
And prove me wrong. Show me historically.
Yeah, exactly. Where have you not?
It was a topic.
Oh, where you only stole my money? That was like the nicest you've been to me, my people in history.
But that's simply a job, tax collector. How much they bill for him is another story. But the real robber is the king that's structuring it.
No, but the king sometimes saying, here's the fair tax, please ask it. And then the robber is middleman taxing on the taxes the king gave him.
So let's see. We're asking good questions.
Like Shmuel said before, the king wants 10, the guy's taking 50.
Right, in such a case, right? Or the guy just picked you, I'm collecting taxes. He woke up this morning, he's like, I need food, let me just go get taxes from the Jews. Yeah.
He's got the king's stamp.
Let me just go get some taxes from the Jews. And that would even be a yid. Homemade me'elav. Sometimes, and then so this yid this Judenrat, exactly. This Judenrat might be Pasal Edis, it might be a Cheskas Gaza. We have to see. Hamoches ha'omed. By the way, another thing is that if they're making bridges and they're paving roads with money that they're taking from taxes, but the way that they take taxes is theft. Is it mutter to go on that road? Is it mutter to drive? Is it mutter to go? From Gezel? So these are just questions that we're asking. tremendously halacha l'maisa sugya that like I've never even gone into until we saw the tax collector and we mentioned it, and then we saw them in the Dam, and this is the Rambam.
I mean, you see Rabbi Shem Baruch Chai slamming their roads and their bridges and everything.
Ah, yeah. And it's Shem Baruch Chai, by the way, this is the guy who said it right here. It's Shem Baruch Chai.
He was a big anti-Shiva guy.
Big anti-Shiva guy. Yeah, their roads, they're just making it for Nazasman. But they're bad houses because they like whores and they like having gay sex. Oh. Yes, Diddy for those Shiva. You know? Rishon Bar Yochai. Rishon Bar Yochai told us that they were a bunch of like, bathhouse, Sodomniks back in the day. What are you going to say, man?
The road that's paved with.
It's exactly we're talking about Vodazara dot Beis on Beis. Right? You say, oh, you think that you guys are so great, Romans, because you made roads and bathhouses, but we know that you're just giving people like things that make them drowsy and raping them in those bathhouses. You know? Hashem Baruch Hu, he talked about all this stuff. Just using a Diddy example of like that, like he would give them drinks and make them fall asleep.
Back then it was huge. There were the wines and the things. They would have
bathhouses. I mean, the Greeks, like Aristotle and Socrates. Aristotle and Socrates, they're like, oh, it's like such a great mila to anally rape your like kids.
No, they would have like little pupils. Students,
yeah,
that was their boyfriends. Like kids.
Yeah, that was like like I'll teach you.
Famous thinkers.
Yeah, Aristotle and Plato. These people were like
all the
absolute
Greek thinkers had little boyfriends. Like 8-year-old, 9-year-old kids would be there.
Yeah, they're like that was how they.
They'd walk around and their little boyfriend would be there with them.
That was how they would like. That's how like they like.
They have statues of little boys.
Yeah, that's how they would like teach them. It's like, oh, I really want to teach this guy. Like, come, I'll give you extra hard tonight. It's horrible, it's disgusting.
The boys didn't have options.
The boys did not
right.
really.
And the people who get abused pass on abuse. So it could be there's a Ben Achar Ben chain of people.
We're Ben Achar Ben of Yashve based measures. They're Ben Achar Ben of not being able to sit because they got sedomed. It is actually.
It shows you how much Bechir is really involved in all what's going on.
Listen. There's a lot of the world really needs to heal.
We need refuah. That's the most.
We need the refuah.
The same is one big healing for everyone.
Yeah, should be zeichet. Should be zeichet. So, Moches, coming from the king, is Machas Melch. Ain't no kitzpah, but the king says take whatever you want. In such a case, it's also illegal taxes. Ella, if the king says no limit to how much taxes you can take from these kikes,
then we already
then
we could lie.
Then you're allowed to deceive and swear and falsely and all that stuff. You know?
As a tax collector, or as the guy that's getting coerced?
As a tax.
No, the guy's getting coerced. Yeah, the tax. The guy's getting coerced to pay taxes. He'll just take whatever he wants and leave whatever he wants. Aval, says the Rambam, and this is the most important line, because this line is going to go against everything that we've, not against, but it's like we've been going like on one heavy thing of like, taxes, let's just lie and let's steal and they have no right. Aval, meches shebasku hamelech, the tax that the king paskin, the king said you have to do. V'amar sheyilkach shlish o revia o davar katzov. He says take a third of the money, or take a third of their yield, right? Take a third of the apples that this guy grew, or take a fourth, or any amount that he's giving. He's giving a limited amount to be taxes. And he says to this yid, he says, this is your job, you're a tax collector, just like you said, Zalman. You're a tax collector, this is a job, it's tax collector. What do you do? I collect taxes for the king. The king says, collect a fourth of all the taxes. I collect taxes in such a case, even if it's a yid. V'noda she'adam ze ne'eman. And it's known that like this guy that's collecting taxes is a believable guy, you know? Ve'eno mosif la'atzmo klum. And he doesn't add for himself at all. Al masha gazar melech, the amount that the king decreed that he has to pay. Eino bechezkas gazlan. That yid is not a chezkas gazlan.
A yid or just the person?
The yid who's a tax collector and coming and taking a quarter of everyone's He goes around field to field taking a quarter of the apples that they grew that year.
But if it was a guy, it's different.
No, even if it's a guy,
You said yid.
but yeah, because even if it's a yid, that's the chiddush. Lomi baya, right?
I don't need it then.
Well, actually, I don't know if it's lomi baya, but Eida b'chezkas. Maybe a guy is b'chezkas gazlan. We have to see because the Rambam does say if he was a guy. Great nakuda. But here he's saying that because here the chiddush is the yid is not b'chezkas gazlan. You have a yid coming around. You have a yid coming around and taking a quarter of everyone's apples. And then we're going to call this guy up for shlishi. This guy's a cheskas gazlan. He's a robber. No, he's not a cheskas gazlan. He's doing a legitimate job.
Legitimate job. So it shouldn't be an undefined percentage. It's got to be based on something.
Right.
Whether it's the neighborhood, whether it's the services provided, whether it's the actual income.
It seems to be whatever the king decides.
Right, but I'm saying the king should decide based on certain criteria, not just
Should?
whatever.
Well,
Well, the king should do a lot of things. Like, this is the.
implies
This is the fact.
termination. And a termination is a type of limiting. It's a type of specifying that this unit is not infinite. It terminates at a certain point. It doesn't have, it's a finite number. And so whether that's a percentage or a flat fee or another type of ratio, it's still, it's decided. It can't, an infinite thing is really undecided. It's undetermined.
Yeah, infinity. Like
Decided, it's saying it stops here. It's based on something that.
yeah, there's an amount, but I'm still curious what gives the king a right. There's got to be maybe like a pasuk or something that says that the king is allowed to just or not. Maybe it's like no, this is the way of the world, and like because.
God says you should take a king upon yourself.
Right, and also like that, like the nation. Is that like or is that the king? Right, is that like supposed to be like that, or is that just like? It's very interesting to understand society in general. Like why? No, like how did it come out that way? That like we are like a people that like we always have a king. Like one person always rises to the top.
You see
like this is the way that it. And it's true on humans also.
In the wolves and the bears, the alpha male actually takes the cries to feed the other guys to make sure they're all good. So in nature, you see there is always a person who feels his tafkid is to be the guy to provide for those who can't, which is crazy.
Right, but sometimes sometimes it's because he just wants the power.
Yeah, of course.
You know, he just wants.
Made it built in that you want the power because we needed the alpha male. Who knows the whole thing? Like, without an alpha male,
It's big. It's I don't know the word sociology or psychology or something. It's a very interesting sugya of how humanity developed. That we have a king, and we have like these. Is that in the Moshe Mashiach? It's still going to be a king. It's still going to be like this idea of an elite. Is that not the problem? Is the problem of just how the elite class is like acting towards like us? You know, like they're collecting taxes with no limits. You know, I don't know. We got to go into the sugya. We got to see like what is the current state vis-a-vis like what is like the halachic ideal. And when we figure that out, we'll be zocheh to move towards that and know what we want, you know?
But it's not simply about the collecting, whether it be...
I know you're talking about the using after the collecting. And the transparency involved.
Right.
You know?
Or lack thereof.
Right.
I'm saying it would be great if they say, here's how much we took in taxes, here's where it all went, and you know?
Yeah.
The crazy thing was in America right now, they just had a crazy storm, and the FEMA said, oh, so
Yeah.
we don't have any money for you guys.
We gave it all to,
we
gave it all to Ukraine.
And
Lebanon.
absolutely answer
I'm saying the most recent one was a big check to Lebanon.
to that
Yeah.
survey that...
Lebanese people got more money than the Americans. And we're footing the bill. And we didn't vote for it. Who decided?
Unelected. Completely. All right, so it's amazing that we're learning this sugya. I can't believe how like relevant and shibadik it is. And this is a good opening for all of us in our lives to the sugya of taxes. We're going to see if there's a marsha. No? Oh, wait. No. Okay, fine, maybe. I might do something. We might see something crazy that like unless you know about it, like you don't even know it's like an option to do, unless you have like the specific Gemara which you happen to have. So let's first see if the Maharsha says something, and then we'll see the next thing. Don't get too excited. Don't get too excited about the next thing.
About the tax rebate? I'm very excited.
But do get very excited about that. We do have a Maharsha actually over here. Unbelievable. The Maharsha says, Sona Gezel Be'ola, right? We said that Hashem hates theft. That the comparison was that like this king, like Ki'ilu paid taxes in his sayap, so that like people will think like, oh, everyone's paying taxes over here. And that's compared to Hashem, he hates Gezel. He says he hates Gezel, even though really like, is anything happening? He's going right back into his pocket, into the king's pocket. Right? And at the end of the day, Hashem, everything's Hashem, so like, what's the difference if like this person thinks it's his for like a little bit of a blip of time? In the end of the day, it's Hashem's. So what does Hashem care about the Gezel? The answer is no. Hashem is teaching us the importance of hating Gezel. Sona Gezel Ba'ola. Hashem doesn't want it in his mitzvah. By the way, why don't they talk about this by mitzvah of Avera? And I guess this is kind of in the sugya mitzvah of Avera. It's the same Rabbi Yochanan, the name of Rashbi, saying it, that Hashem hates theft in his Ola. And it says, Mile something, Mashal Madar Doma. What's the comparison? L'melech Basar V'Dam, flesh and blood king. It says, V'lekach Nakat. It's unbelievable, by the way. I have this, okay, whatever. V'lekach Nakat B'Kra. And that's why in the pasuk they talked about the korban ola, shekula kalil, because it's all burnt, right? Some korbanos the bailim eat, some korbanos the kohanim eat, and some korbanos like the ola, it's completely burned to Hashem on the mizbeach. Shekula kalil, v'hakol shelo, and everything is to Hashem. That's very. Aval chatas ve'asham b'shar korbanos, but the other korbanos like a chatas and an asham, vadai the gezela gemurehi. Of course, that there's complete gezela. Kevan the ne'echolin, because they're eaten, right? V'lo havedoma lemashal klal. It wouldn't be a good comparison if they were talking about Hashem hates gezel in a chatas. Why? Because the chatas, Hashem gets some of it, and some of it the kohanim eat. Or shlamim, Hashem gets some of it, but the kohanim get some of it, and the bailim get some of it. So it couldn't say that Hashem hates gezel in those things, because then the comparison of a king that everything is Hashem's, everything belongs to Hashem, and still Hashem says don't steal from each other to teach us how to live. So that comparison was only possible if the pasuk Ani Hashem Sona Gezel Be'ola that we were talking about, it would only make sense if it was an Ola. This pasuk in Yeshayahu, this comparison would only be able to be made because Yeshayahu used specifically an Ola. When Yeshayahu said Hashem hates Gezel in his korban, he specifically chose the Ola to teach us this lesson. That everything is Hashem's, and still he hates Gezel. Because it's about teaching us and helping us live. But when the shibud tries to, so that's already a psyop, trying to teach us trying to teach us how to be obedient and docile. And they probably also give a healthy dose of fluoride in the water alongside to make sure that they pay their taxes and never ask any questions. And just go and vote and wear an I voted sticker. Says the Heilige Maharsha, that I'm so happy that we have found them, that there's a Maharsha in this, such a simcha. Kevan the ne'echalin, since they're eaten, the lo havadoma lemashal klal, wouldn't be similar to the mashal, right? V'zeu shediktek Rashi, says the Maharsha, it's not only an amazing diak that was made, not only an amazing nikuda that was made by Isaiah the prophet, but also Rashi made a great diktuk here, right? Lefaresh, to explain The Abba Pisha Kol Shalo, even Abba Pisha Kol Shali, Vav Mitachila Shali, it was always mine. Saying this point, Rashi was driving in this point. What?
Unlike the king?
Hashem is saying that even though everything's mine, still, and like, if this guy steals from that guy steals, it's different. Right? It's all mine. It's like, for example, a guy has 2 wives, right? And like, one wife steals like, I don't know, like a dress from the other wife. Like, in the end of the day, the guy's like, all right, so it's still my dress. Like, I still own this dress. And like,
my domain.
Yeah, so Hashem is like that for like all of us.
It's not even him, I don't feel like nothing.
Right? Like, oh, this guy stole from that. Hashem's like, it's like, great, like, still one of my wives has my dress. Also, the Ava Bi Shakol Shali Devi Hashem. Ratzalomar Shakol Shali Shakula Kriva Ligavoa. Everything is really everything that is in our world, everything that's mundane, everything, every tree and every blade of grass and every fish in the sea gives what it can and gets what it needs. So, mitachila za'olam, umalo o shalo, right? From the beginning of the world and the whole world, everything is Eibishter's. V'havi mamish doma l'mashal. And so therefore it's very similar to the mashal, the comparison of the king giving them taxes back to himself. And it's especially, like, it's only possible to say it because Yeshayahu used the comparison of Ola, which is fully burned to Hashem. Which I think is very beautiful. Like this Mahalach, we've been thinking about it since the times of the prophets. We've been thinking about these ideas. Little old us, thinking about the same ideas, the same Nakudas that Isaiah, Yeshayahu, the prophet, was like thinking about. He's like, oh, I'm going to use Ola to teach this idea. Okay, so that was Moradik that we had, Amar Shah. So what's this thing that I said don't get too excited about? It's something unbelievable. This Gemara that I'm using, this Talmud Bavli, is Bir Halacha and Halacha Brura. This was made by Rav Kook. The Bir Halacha is that actually on the bottom of the Gemara over here, you can see that it's the Halacha Brura. And he actually brings the Rambam. Each one of these Rambams brought in the bottom of the Gemara were brought by Rav Kook himself. Rav Kook himself was sitting and doing such like technical, like it seems like busy work. Like anyone could have just brought the Rambams. I could have done that. Like, no, just bring the Rambam. Rav Kook said, we have doctors and lawyers coming from Galus and coming to Eretz Yisrael and doing work that's technically beneath them because that's what Am Yisrael needs. They need people plowing the land, you know? And these doctors and lawyers came to Israel and plowed the land. Says Rav Kook, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to plow the land. We have a Surah Sadaf. Obviously, Rav Kook's not going to change the Surah Sadaf. He's not Krum. But on the bottom, he puts the Rambam. Okay.
The Rambam, the whole Rambam?
No, the Rambam that's quoted. Hagonev o hagazul v'hikriv gimel. He brings some of the Rambams. They have like Nikudas. I think maybe, I don't know who wrote these. Maybe it was even Rav Kook himself. But he brings the Rambam. And he brings the Shulchan Aruch. Sometimes he says what was brought by the Ein Mishpat, he brings it. He just brings it on the page, which is great. But then, that's halacha brura, but there's also ber halacha. And this is very random. You can only buy these Gemaras at Rav Kook's yeshiva, Mosad Rav Kook. They don't sell them otherwise. It's a rare Gemara that I was over to find out about because I went to Chispin. Maybe I would have found out about it anyways, but in Chispin they have these also. Okay, so in the back, there's something very interesting, and I don't know because here they didn't bring the Rambam. Oh, because I want to see the halacha brura on Nidarim to go into the sugya. They go into the sugyas with Rishonim and Achrayim, and it's like an unbelievable resource. But we would need the halacha brura in the Darim to go into that, because they're not talking about this sugya here, because the sugya there, they mentioned tax collectors, but the tax collector sugya is really in the Darim. So, there's not really a halacha brura on the tax collector sugya. We did see a marsha on it. But once they introduced the halacha brura, let's see what he says about one of these sugyas that we've done already, or that we've seen. In Lulav hagazul. So, he talks about the Lulav hagazul is a really long one, we see. And it goes through like the whole sugya, and it's really beautiful. And then but it's really long. There is a halacha brura about the next sugya we're going to see in the Gemara. And so, Emir Hashem, we'll see the halacha brura on that one. And on the meches, the tax collectors, I want to stay on that. I want to stay on that sugya. The next sugya is already Amar Lahu Rav Huna Lahanu Av Nachri. These people, Av Nachri, like fathers Nachri, no, it's spelled Aleph Vav Nun Chaf Reish Yud. Kizavinu Asa Me'agayim, when you're buying Hadassim from the Goyim, Lo Tigzazu Aton, you shouldn't be the one to pick it. Ella Ligzuza Inu V'yavuluchu, they should be the ones to pick it and give it to you. And so that's the sugya for tomorrow. Mirz Hashem. It's this idea that we've spoken about stealing land, and the land isn't stolen. So then, when does the stealing actually happen? Maybe when the hadassim is picked, right? Because you can't steal land, so the stealing happens only when the hadassim is picked, and so we wanted to have it in the hand of the non-Jew, so that the Jew is not the one to come and pick it. We'll deal with that idea tomorrow, and we'll talk more tomorrow about the sugya that kind of like the question that kind of like went around here today. Like it's always something that we always think about when we're talking about Goyim. It's like, what, are the Goyim going to hate us?
We don't want to add fuel to fire.
Right. So I am not afraid of that, because we're not saying Goyim as like non-Jews. We're really talking about akun, idolaters. Right? When the Gemara talks about, it calls them idolaters. Those people we can talk bad about. Those people who are raping kids and drinking their blood, and doing pandemics, like the idolaters, the Jeffrey Epstein's, P. Diddy's of the world. And by the way, Jeffrey Epstein and P. Diddy are both only fronts. They blame the Jews, they blame the blacks, but really it's these Roman Shibud, satanic people, and they have Jews and blacks amongst them, but the Iker, the highest amongst them, are from the Shibud. Malchi is from Bnei Esav Mamish. Okay, so this Gemara in the Darim, and we're talking about Goyim trying to take money from us. We're talking about the idolaters. We're talking about the king of the Goyim. These are all huge sugyas which are so apropos for today. And so I've been talking about, in the name of my uncle, right, that Gan Eden is Stende, Gema, Nedaim, Ran. We're not going to see a Ran. So we've seen Ran in shiur, because when we're doing definitely a night seder, when we're doing the Ran on the Rif. So the Ran in Maseches Nedarim, he's on the page. It's the only Masechta that you have Rashi and the Ran. And then like Tosfos is like crammed into the sides over here. So let's see some Ran. Let's run through a Ran to end shiur today. A good Ran, a good Gan Eden, Gemara Dam Ran. Meichsen. It says that you can give taxes. You can lie about taxes to the Meichsen. It says, Nota Meches HaMelech V'rotza Lido Peirosa Ba'al Korchach. He's trying to take your fruit. He's trying to take the guy's Peirosav B'olam Hazeh.
Of course.
Ba'al Korchach. Not going to take my fruit. I'm going to do everything I can to get him away, Not be like, well, Torah says I can't lie, so I guess, yeah, all my money's here, and yeah, just rob me blind. No. Hashem did not raise no chumps, you know? And even though the world will try to brainwash us into thinking, when we learned about the Holocaust, we just learned about how the Jews went like cattle to the houses. They don't tell us that in every single ghetto, there was resistance. Every ghetto had a Yidden like us who were, I mean, I don't know if they were steiging in every ghetto, but every ghetto they were fighting back. Every ghetto they were thinking about, what can we do? How come? And listen, it was in Gullus, it was in Chutz La'aretz. You know, now we're in Eretz Yisrael, and it's the same thing. We're thinking about how we can fight back. We know that there's a big shiur. We know that they're mamish killing people. We know from the chemtrail and the fluoride and the vaccines and the poison, and they're taking all the money with all kinds of taxes. And so that's what Hashem wants. Hashem wants us to fight back. Hashem wants us to, if we need to, lie and steal. No, not steal, but lie to the Goyim if they're trying. Listen, to prevent them from taking advantage of us, to prevent them from like taking our stuff and our property, which is against halacha. Fascinating that they're allowed to. A king is allowed to say, "Give me 4%, or give me 25% or 33% or whatever amount." But it has to be a limit. And we have to really get into, well, where do we learn the origins of these laws? I don't know where to go in like veiter in the sugya except for seeing the Ran.
We have in our own like tradition of the sliding scale. Like if you can't afford to bring this korban, you can bring this lesser offering. That's
another great point. Wow, korban olav yored.
We have sensitivity to like a person's different.
Right. That's a great point. That's Hashem saying like, yeah, you could bring. You could bring me a vegetable offering of bread. Yeah. Like if you can't afford even a bird, and you can bring a bird if you can afford a bird, but you can't afford like a whole animal. There's only on some korbanos. Other korbanos you got to break the bank. So what does he say? The Heilige Ran, the Ran. He says the Moichsin lipater mina meches. The Ran says you're allowed to make a shvua to exempt yourself from having to pay taxes. You can basically lie about your money to an illegal tax collecting system. So it's very halacha l'maisa now to figure out, well, where does the American tax system fall in the spectrum? Where does the Israeli tax system fall into the system? I kind of feel that like it's probably like theft gomor, but that's like, we don't know, we got to blind. I mean, to see like, I don't know, I'm not an expert on like knowing like the ins and outs, so, but this will be my first opening to the sugya. I've tried to understand taxes. I visited, remember we went to the Federal Reserve Museum, just trying to understand, getting a few information in New Orleans. Federal Reserve, yeah, she
On
was.
a federal holiday you went.
Yeah, maybe.
Yes.
On Mardi Gras, yeah, or something. No, we went, it was open, remember? Oh, the first time it was closed, and we came the next day, and it was open. Yeah, it's true, we went in, it was good. So, going back there in the sugya, because you know that it's a big sugya, seeing the Ran, finally, the Ran says, V'hamar Shmuel dina d'malchusa dina, but doesn't Shmuel say that, like, listen, the law of the land is the law of the land? You know? They're like yeshivish people who would like tell you can't cross if the light, if it says like don't cross, you know those things with the hands, don't cross. There'll be yeshivish people who say asher to cross. Why? But there's no cars. There might be someone who says such a thing. So what does the Ran say? See the Ran before Rashi. Rashi here is weird. Like Dina Mochudina, Lulav Nidre Onsen. He says Rashi in Nidarim is weird. It's not Nidre Onsen. It's not like Nidarim that like you're forced to make Ninhu, right? The Mishnah implies that the reason that you're allowed to swear, they can enter is because you're being forced. Nidre Onsen. Like I'll kill you if you did this and that thing. I swear I didn't. Right? Even though the person maybe did, but like you gun to your head, swear it didn't, you know? Because you're being forced to. So does taxes fall in that category of being allowed to lie on the neder? That's the question. Does taxes fall in that category? When the Gemara asked, "I but dina de malchus dina," the law of the land is the law of the land of the malchus of the kingship that you're under is the law. So then it's not like you're being forced to pay because, right? Why are you allowed to lie? The law of the land that you're living in is that you have to pay taxes. Why are you allowed to lie? That's the Gemara's question. Why are you allowed to lie? And the Gemara answers two things. Meches she'en lo kitzvah, says Rashi, shenotel kol ma she'rotzeh, takes whatever he wants. Or b'meches omer me'elav, he comes from himself, she'en shel malchus. It's not the king, it's just some guy. You know, he bought a hat that says U.S., it says IRS. He came to the house, it's like I'm
How
collecting.
much you selling those hats for?
Yo.
But are the collectors shluchim for the king?
He's saying sometimes they go rogue.
Yeah, or sometimes like just because the king made up some collectors doesn't mean that everyone's collecting is automatically collected for the king. It could be so random.
What the king wanted.
Right, exactly. And even if he is, maybe he's collecting more than the king said, and so then you would be allowed to lie to him. The pasuk says, "Im ikesh mitpatel." You're with someone who's not straight with you, then don't be straight with him. And what does the Ramchal bring this pasuk? Talking about Yetzer Hara. Is to trick the Yetzer Hara, is the tachbulos neged the Yetzer Hara.
Treat a fool according to his folly, you know?
Yeah.
Like if they're coming with this game, play that game back.
Right.
So it's measure for measure.
Kind of, in a way, because like if they're trying to rob you and lie and deceive you, so then
But
deceive them back. What?
It's measured, it's proportional. No?
No, you don't shoot them, you don't kill them.
Ideally, it's proportional. Obviously, there are those that overreact.
Yeah,
Just don't play around with the games.
right, don't be a pushover. That's what the Torah is saying. Don't let them, like, just tell you whatever they tell you. Oh, you have to pay the king. Don't be gullible. Don't listen to whatever everyone tells you. That's what the Torah is saying by this tax thing. Don't be like, they're saying I have to pay taxes. Let me just pay it without even thinking.
But if you're not gullible, you could be not gullible and still be forced to comply.
That's a different thing if they're forcing them, you know. That's what they've done to us.
Yeah.
This is happening.
Okay.
That's the whole system.
Yeah, but we want to know when we have because all of these I am here today, gone tomorrow. The Torah, the world of Torah, and that is the MS Welt. That's what we want to understand. What's it supposed to be like? How are we going to collect taxes? You know, how are taxes? What is taxes? To know how to think about it. That's why it's good to learn about this stuff. Good to learn about taxes to understand how to shape our worldview about how to think about taxes. It's hard to to have an opinion when you don't know what the Torah says about a thing. You know? So says the Ran, V'hamar Shmuel dina de malchus dina. Doesn't Shmuel say that the law of the land is the law? V'hechi sharinan. Oh, the Ran so geshmak. What's my line? V'hechi sharinan lemeidar hachi. How do we permit a person to make this neder kedei lehi pater to become pater? Kevan the min adin chayev lidin lo as the meches. It's a din that he has to pay taxes according to Shmuel dina de malchus dina. Amazing. Okay, says the Ran. But moches, no, it's talking about a moches. It's limitless taxes. The keva chikain, therefore lav dinu. It's not din. Like I said, it's not din. Ella chamsanusa. It's chamas. It's chamas. It's chamsanusa. V'chamsanusa de moches lav dinu. So if they're trying to force us to give it, then it's not din. Once they're trying to like force a person to do something, it goes away from the getter of din. It's no longer dina de malchus dina if they're forcing it. If it's not that it's forced, but if it's chamsanus, if it's like I don't know how to say it, gluttonous with money, greedy. Yeah, if they're like if they're greedy, if they're taking something without, so then it's not din. Says the Gemara, says the final Ran. Oh, we got a nice juicy one. He stands by his own. Not with the command of the king. Because Tosfos, and they write in Tosfos, the Davka b'malchei o Akko. Says Tosfos, specifically the king of idolaters. Now, this is good. We're not saying goyim. We're saying idolaters.
When the guy comes to say, "Oh, you're talking about," no, we're talking about people who are.
Yeah, we're talking about exactly.
The gods get rain.
Yeah, exactly. Or drinking their blood right after they split, cutting their neck, drinking their adrenalized blood. Those are the people we're talking about.
A lot of these laws are written.
Right?
The rulers
It says, oh, look what they say about goyim. It's like a terrible translation. This is the problem with using Art Scroll. It says Gentiles translated back to goyim. Bad translations is the problem. Is why the Gemara is under fire sometimes, because the real MS is not talking about non-Jews. Not talking about non-Jews, talking about idolaters.
And we should tell the non-Jews, by the way, because of us, we've rid the world from them, and you have your freedom.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Our contribution, yeah.
You're welcome.
You would be.
And now, by the way, in the Third Reich Holocaust, they were coming mostly against Jews. Now they're coming against everyone. Even the people who quote unquote call themselves Christians or Muslims, they don't understand that the elite of the Christians and Muslims are also shibud Satanists. And by the way, a lot of what people might think is the quote unquote elite of the Jews, because like the fancy, like Rabbi Shmuel, shibud Gomor, the elites, and we know that Reform and conservatism, Shabtai Tzvi, the continuation of Shabtai Tzvi, and that was the Shabtai Tzvi was the way that they infiltrated into Yiddishkeit. But they've infiltrated all the religions and all of the Abrahamic religions, all of the ones that think that we're worshiping God, right? They're trying to, at least. So they have like the Christians. It can be hard for Christians, Catholic, to understand that he was deceived into this Trinity, thinking that that's Abishur, when it's obviously idolatry. And the same thing with the Muslims throwing rocks at Marcolis, And it's going to be hard. And it's going to be harder for the Muslims and the Catholics to come to the realization than it was for us to come to the realization that the earth is not a globe.
Always harder to change your mindset.
For sure. And things that we've been brainwashed since we're kids. Since they got baptized, since they got, I don't know what they do in Islam. But since we were kids, we walk into school, we have a globe on the desk of the teacher. Okay, doing the final run. Right, so these ideas which are so embedded in us, they're hard to break away from. It's going to be hard for the Catholic, hard for the Muslim, but we're going to all do it together. It's very hard for anyone growing up in Western civilization to come to the realization that the earth is not a globe. We don't have democracy. We've been lied to.
Which explains the
we never went to the moon.
Situation. It's so extreme that
that's what they want. That's one of the reasons why they have different actors playing different roles. You have Lady Gaga. Today she's Lady Gaga. Tomorrow she's Amy Winehouse. Different actors playing different roles. Is it Jim Carrey or Joe Biden? I can't tell. And the reason they do it like that is just so we have no hasaga of reality. They want us to be so confused. It's the biggest psychological operation.
we call it
Hollywood.
the fog of war, but there's also the fog of everything that's not in us.
Yeah. Okay, we're finishing this last round. It's only when the king is an idolater. Amar Dina Malchus Dina. That's when we say that Dina of the Malchus is the din. Mibnei Sha'aret Shalo, because the land is belonging to this idolatrous king. V'yachol Omer Lahem, he could say to them, Im lo ta'asu mitzvosai, if you don't do what I say, what I command, egaresh eschem min haaretz, and you can't live in my land, like you were saying. So this is cases over here. Aval Malchei Israel, but the king, but a Jewish leader, lo, there's no dina de malchus dina. You do not have to wait at a red light in Israel or at a stop sign. Lefish Eretz Israel, Kol Yisrael shutafim bo. Eretz Israel, what? You're a king. We're all shutaf in Eretz Israel, and so there's no dina de malchus dina, and I don't have to pay taxes in Israel. Halachically, what taxes in Israel? Dina de malchus dina in Israel. Kol Yisrael shutafim bo. So the idea of taxes in Eretz Yisrael might be a different din. It's amazing that it's a different din in Eretz Yisrael with all these mitzvahs, but even in taxes, it's a different din if we're living in Israel, living in Galus. When we say that the law of the land is the law, these words, so if someone acquired this tax that was collected, You have to give him the tax. V'chein nami im lo kana also, if he didn't acquire it, ela shehu memuna, he's appointed to collect, l'kavos dameches, she'eno rishai Yisrael chavero lishaba, she'ein truma. So the guy who's getting tax collecting can't swear, oh, this is truma, and so I don't have to pay taxes on it because it's truma. I don't know why that would make a difference. Deleka onsa. It's not like he's being forced. And if he's not being forced to swear, I mean, in the case where it's a fair tax, and he's not being forced, you can't make a false swear to get out of it, because the fair tax, because you're living in my land, and so this is the laws, then you should get out. If you don't want to be here, then you can leave. You know? And so to end, the final idea that we see from here is that the king has the right to say who he wants in his land and who he doesn't want in his land. And we've seen that throughout history. The most clear example of that is when every Jew was kicked out of every Arab country in 48. Ethnically cleansed. You want to talk about ethnically cleansing? The Arabs did that to the Jews, and we go, okay, back to Eretz Yisrael, we were happy to. Except that when we were met here, instead of the Sephardim Jews being celebrated with open arms and steiging together, we cut their payas off. The shibud cut their payas off, and that comes from the shibud in Israel, in Yiddishkeit. We should be zocha to be megaresh the shibud of the Yid and get out of here, go live in Saudi Arabia. The sons of Yishmael are allowed to live here. And sons of Esav are allowed to live here. But this is Eretz Yisrael, and we are Am Yisrael, and you guys pay way more taxes than the Yidden. And to live here, you have to understand this is the community, but there is an idea of ger toshav, right? Any guy who denies idolatry, ger toshav, is din ger toshav, a different din than the rest of the guy. Is din ger toshav, he has different schuyos, and this is also sugi that we're going to learn soon, and we should be zocha to have Ziyat Dishmaya build the third base of Mikdash and destroy all of our enemies and chill the entire way. Much love. Kol tov, shkayach.